Yo, what's up, everyone? This is D, and you have tuned into the Time Out Show with D. Thank you for joining. In this episode, we'll be talking about Tupac Shakur and the 7-day theory. The number 7 evolving around his life a lot and his death. So, let's get straight into it. Tupac was born June the 16th, 1971 in New York City. His active years as a rapper in his career from 1989 to 1996. Tupac was reported shot September the 7th and died on the Friday the 13th, which was the 7th day after the shooting. The name of Tupac's last album was called Machiavelli, which was the Machiavelli, the name he had adopted from a Spanish war strategist back in the day. This guy's name was Niccolo Machiavelli. Niccolo Machiavelli was a Spanish politician, and he faked his death. When he came back, he had no more enemies, which is the reason why he faked his death, because at that time he had just so much enemies that faking his death just seemed like the most craziest but greatest option for him. And it worked. And I feel like that's how Tupac's carried out, I should say, his legacy. Because there is a lot of speculation out there to the point that he is still alive. And that he did plot this whole thing to fake his own death, because he had a lot of enemies at the time. Everybody was coming for him. You know, other rival gangs or other rappers, or even people within his own circle. Suge Knight being one of them. The police, the FBI, the DA, and pretty much just all the politics, and all the high power. Reasons being, personally, for myself, is Tupac was he was a revolutionist. He stood up for the community. He stood up for black people and just basic human rights and having equality within color, because he was not a racist at all, but he made himself known that he was a black representative in his community, which is amazing. He's the fucking man, and I've even got his name tatted on me. And this was way back in the day where I started to understand Tupac a lot more, and the conspiracies weren't really conspiracies, because I believe that he did plot his own death to wear off some of those enemies that he did have. But let's get into the night of the shooting anyway. It was in Las Vegas on September the 7th. It was at a boxing match at the MGM Grand Hotel. Mike Tyson main event versus Bruce Sheldon. Mike Tyson won that fight. After the fight, Tupac had his own little fight in the bloody casino. Reports were saying that one of his homies ran up to Tupac like, he knew who stole Tupac's chain, his gold death row chain. So Tupac, he didn't want to embarrass himself in front of the boys, because they were looking at him like, what you gonna do about it, sort of thing. So Tupac had to confront that man, and he punched him over, kicked his ass and shit. And he had Suge Knight in there throwing a few head kicks in. After the fight had broken out and everything, the entourage was quite amazing on its own when they leaving the casino. And if you watch the footage, you can almost feel that there was something going to happen from that moment on, which led to the shooting of Tupac, as we believe. Jumping into his car with Suge Knight, pulling up to the lights, and some girls rolled up beside them in the car, noticed who it was, and smiles. Then on the opposite side of in the lane opposite over, a white Cadillac pulled up. Reports saying that there were several shots, and all these shots were kind of just directed at Tupac, sort of thing, because Suge Knight, he obviously survived. But I just want to play a little bit of a snippet of some lyrics that somebody's thrown together, and it sounds cool anyway. But it's Tupac, pretty much talking about that night. But there's something very strange in there that we'll get back to later after having a bit of a listen to this, because it gets pretty interesting.
Shit. Let me tell you what happened though. Thug life. It's been 16 years, still stuck in a dark cage, living in my mind, thinking about the fateful day. 9796, I remember like it's yesterday. I got a lot to say, it'll make a thug, make it cry. How the media said that I died, but I'm still breathing. Who do you believe in? Everything that they said was a lie. You see, listen, we was in Vegas, getting faded in the city of sin. I had a bad feeling that night after the fight at the MGM. Can you feel me? We left the telly on the way to the club. These hoes pulled up right beside us. My adversary steady plotting on my death. Squeezing bullets to my name on my chest. I heard gunshots, but it got weird. Instead of bullets, only smoke appeared. Next thing I knew, 2 men in a suit were just standing there. He opened the door to grab a nigga by his feet, let my head hit the concrete. It was a nightmare, dragged on the street, scars on my back, looking at the white Cadillac. Before the black bag over my head, I couldn't believe what I happened to see. A nigga who looked just like me in the passenger seat. But it can't be me, sitting there next to Suge.
There are a lot of people that think you were involved.
Yo, man, that shit right there is pretty intense on its own, because if you listen to some of those lyrics, what I've taken away from that personally is the part where he talks about the white Cadillac pulling up to them while he was yarning to some bitches. He thought he heard gunshots and several gunshots going out and everything, but all he saw was smoke appear. And then he noticed 2 guys in suits standing there. And I'm picturing this as he was dragged out of the car, his head hitting the concrete and getting dragged into another car with a black bag thrown over his head. And then it talks about after that, he looks just like me, dressed like me, but he can't be me, sitting there next to Suge. That kind of part on its own is kind of like, wow, did they swap him out, dragging Tupac out the car, then replacing him with another lookalike Tupac that was shot and bleeding. Because at this time, Suge Knight had noticed after the smoke had cleared that Tupac had been shot. Not actually knowing that it wasn't even Tupac, but done a fucking 180 and went back to the MGM casino, not knowing what to do. And the police at the time, there was a cop car around in that area, which didn't pursue the white Cadillac, but ended up pursuing Suge Knight, who had trying to make his way back to the MGM's Grand Hotel. And that's pretty buzzy. So, let's just think a little bit on those sort of lyrics of what he was saying, because I think it's got a real big part of, he might be alive, obviously. That's what I believe anyway. But let's talk a little bit about the fucking FBI and all the bullshit that they were up to, because, yeah, that gets pretty out of it. But it was a counterintelligence program run by the FBI. They looked at Tupac as a threat because being a black revolutionist, trying to create peace within communities, the law didn't want that. They rather violence, drugs, mass shootings within gangs. They don't want that peace. And I believe it's because too much peace, well, that's quite a vulnerable position. Just as if it were too much war or the opposite of peace, then that becomes, well, just a fucking nightmare on its own. So to balance out the world of, there's a lot of other speculations around about why the law wants this sort of thing to continue, and they never want to stamp this sort of shit out. But anyway, Kevin Hackey, he was an FBI agent who was made a bodyguard of Tupac. Kevin Hackey turned on the FBI and tried to warn Tupac a day or two before going to Las Vegas not to go. Didn't want to get into details why. Didn't want to make Tupac too paranoid, which you probably understand. But Suge Knight found out about Kevin Hackey going to Tupac about this sort of information, and he immediately fired Kevin. And that also led to Suge Knight taking away all weapons from other bodyguards. Another man named Reggie Wright, who was also an FBI agent, he was also employed by the death row. But he was totally opposite of Kevin, because just hearing that a little bit about Kevin, he wanted the best for Tupac and he was looking out for his safety. But this other motherfucker, Reggie Wright, he was totally opposite, and he was trying to keep the war on the streets going by fueling death row records and with guns and with drugs, being allowing them to carry out those sorts of deals within the hood gangs and everything, between the Bloods and the Crips especially. Because after Tupac had been shot, the tensions in the hoods escalated due to Suge Knight blaming Puff Daddy and Biggie, and also the Crips for shooting Tupac. Tupac was fighting for his life in hospital. Meanwhile, all this shit was going on out in the hood, because, what Suge Knight had created there was another bit of tension between the two gangs and against Biggie Smalls. So this continued on, but they all came to this agreement that was brought together by these great men in the hood, because they were trying to put the peace back together. And the Crips and the Bloods, they quieted things down, because the Crips came out and said, "Look, we did not shoot Tupac," and that kind of amounted to, okay, well, we're kind of sorry then. But the cops, the FBI's, really, they were pushing for it to continue, and trying to make out bullshit about Tupac as well. But yeah, it didn't last long, because the pieces were broken again, and it continued, the rival between the Bloods and the Crips. But while Tupac was in jail, the system would try and push him into signing with death row while he was on his last leg in jail. And they call this the penal caution tactics, which is the closest thing they had to brainwashing and messing up Tupac's head as much as possible to sign him to death row records. This was all set up by the Central Intelligence. And there was another guy, Russell Poole, who was an FBI agent investigating Biggie Smalls' death, who found out that several FBI agents were working for death row on all levels. And when he asked the superiors what the hell are these guys doing employed under death row? Russell was told in a short quote, the quote was, "They are troubleshooters or covert agents." And that on its own is just like, wow, okay, it's corrupt, and they've got bloody FBI agents and death row records. And this Russell Poole was, he was the type of man to investigate further, because he knew in his right mind that something pretty dodgy was going on here. But yeah, death row basically was the US intelligence for the front company to traffic guns and drugs, and to keep the bloody keep the wars going, rather than having peace truces. So the Bloods and Crips would continue to bloody carry on about their sort of rivalry and tension. So fuck you, the US intelligence, for doing that. But that's just my personal shit anyway. Death row would benefit off this by being allowed to produce as much negative lyrics as possible, because we all know that Tupac Hit 'Em Up, that was directed at Biggie Smalls. You know, with some pretty tough lyrics in there, considering how close Tupac and Biggie were before all this bullshit. But for that song to hit and being able to have radio play, but also being able to hit everybody's TV screens via video, even, you know, having a video clip with it. You couldn't even fucking imagine that sort of music being played on our radios today, or anything, or even having a video clip to be able to watch that sort of shit, because yeah, far out today will just be so offended by such words and behavior of such a person. And yeah, Tupac was pretty ruthless with his words in that song. I don't fucking believe in. But yeah, he also promoted as much weed and alcohol as possible, and counterintelligence program being used the same against the Black Panthers movement back in the day, with Afena Shakur being Tupac's mother. So they kind of used these same strategies to use against Tupac. And yeah, damn well worked. But this guy Russell Poole believes that Suge Knight had Tupac killed, because Tupac wanted to leave Death Row Records, and Suge Knight, being the power of a man that he was, and he didn't want to let go of his greatest asset that he had. You know, Tupac really took Death Row to the next level. And yeah, but Russell soon retired. He was frustrated because of the case, and the department that he was working for didn't allow him to pursue leads that involved other cops, because fuck man, there was like 30 to 40 other officers that were employed by Death Row. So Suge Knight had a lot of high power, and even within the DA's office. But a gentleman named Larry Longo is a DA officer. Suge Knight plotted the whole situation, being with the fight at the casino, to provide that motive to start a war, blaming the Crips for the shooting after the brawl. Suge Knight is seen on camera kicking their victim, which led to his own charges. He would be sentenced for 9 years from there. And Suge Knight really thought he would get off this, and having Larry Longo in his corner. But it still wasn't enough. Suge Knight ended up doing those 9 years in jail because of that. Suge Knight hired people to make this hit on Tupac. That's all one of the things that I researched anyway, and it kind of makes sense in a way, because he wanted to make it look like the Crips that shot him, and to create that war tension in the hood, as I've been explaining earlier. But yeah, that's a lot about Tupac anyway, and the 7 Day Theory. But there was a lot of artists that have came out and put a few messages that involved Tupac, I guess. But You know, there was kind of some subliminal messages that T-Pain had in the song, in Black and Yellow. 50 Cent, he had the Realest Killers song, and he mentioned Tupac in there. Eminem's Freestyle talks about Tupac and the return of him. But one of my favourite songs to remember Tupac by from another artist is from Naughty by Nature, Mourn You Till I Die. And if you ain't heard that, just on one of my own personal views, I believe that Tupac could be this rapper, Akil MC. Akil MC is a part of the group Jurassic 5. The reason why I speculate that is because Akil looks like Pac, but with dreads and some age. And if you really resemble the two, they really look much alike. The tattoos look like they had been removed from Akil, but even like the details of his teeth and his ears to his eyes to his nose really resembles a lot of Tupac, which is quite buzzy on its own. But I remember watching this YouTube video of Akil MC performing on stage, and the way he raps, and the way he performs, the way he moves on stage is very similar to the way Tupac would perform on stage. That high energy, intensity, and in that concert that Akil was performing, he wore a hat that that had the numbers printed on it, 1971, which was the day that Tupac was born. So that was kind of a bit of a conspiracy on its own to think like, well, you might just be Tupac, because why the hell would you wear a hat like that resembling Tupac's year of birth? And I felt like, man, if you're coming back Tupac, like, just show yourself. I would love to see some more shit from you. But I think at the moment, having him as Akil MC is enough for me. But there's also a lot of people saying that he's not Tupac Shakur, and that's cool. Everybody has their own opinions and everything. But I definitely think Tupac's still alive. I believe he will come back in a form of Tupac. When it will be announced, I'm not too sure, but that's for us to find out a bit later. And yeah. But I'm just going to leave you with a bit of a snippet of some Tupac words to end the show. And before I do end the show, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. And it's been a great experience for me to be able to be a host and to have my own podcast show. So I appreciate the love and support that I have been getting, and I hope that you're all going to be able to stick around for some more, because I'd like to say that I've got some guests coming on my show that I'm really excited for, and we're just going to be talking about some topics based around life and sharing other people's experiences. And just leaving a bit of a positive quotes on here, and hopefully to inspire some of our listeners. So thank you, everybody. Take care, and stay tuned for more later on in our future.
The Bible was telling us all these people did this because they suffered this much. That's what makes them special people. Right. I got shot 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what I mean? And I got crucified to the media. You know what I mean? And I walked through with the thorns on, and I had shit thrown on me, and I had the thief at the top. I told that nigga I'll be back for you. You know what I mean? And trust me, this not supposed to be going down. I'll be back. So I'm not saying I'm Jesus, but I'm saying that we go through that type of thing every day. We don't part the Red Sea, but we walk through the hood without getting shot. You know what I mean? We don't turn water to wine, but we turn motherfucking dope fiends and dope heads into productive citizens into society. You know what I mean? We turn money. We turn words into money. You know what I mean? What greater gift can there be? So I believe God blesses us. I believe God blesses those that hustle, those that use their mind, and those that overall are righteous.
I believe that your karma, everything that you do bad comes back to you. So anything that I'm doing that's bad, I'm gonna have to suffer for. But in my heart, I think what I'm doing is right. You know what I mean? So I feel like I'm going to heaven. You know what I mean? And I think heaven is just when you sleep with a good conscience. You don't have nightmares. And hell is when you sleep, the last thing you see is all the fucked up things you did in your life. And you just see it over and over again. Because you don't burn. Because if that's the case, it's hell on earth. Because bullets burn. You know what I mean? It's people that got burnt in fires. That means they went to hell already. You know what I mean? All that is here.